competitors in the South African FMCG market.
The views and opinions expressed by the guest and presenters of Radio Al Ansar are not necessarily the views and opinions of Radio Al Ansar and the Al Ansar Foundation.
TBR, it is now 12 after 7. The South African Revenue Service's effort to combat non-compliance are working, and the taxman will keep using tools that have proven effective in identifying tax evaders. This includes monitoring South Africans' bank accounts, which SARS has used to identify taxpayers whose lifestyles don't match their tax contributions. This was one of the messages from Tax Consulting SA following SARS Commissioner Edward Kiswetter's presentation of South Africa's tax haul for 2024. So joining us this morning on the line is Jashwin Beju, Associate Director and Head of Strategic Engagement and Compliance at Tax Consulting South Africa. Jashwin Beju, good morning. Welcome to the Breakfast Rush on Radio Al Ansar.
Good morning, and thanks so much for having me on today.
It's a pleasure. Please inform us. SARS says it's monitoring South Africans' bank accounts to identify taxpayers whose lifestyles do not match their tax contributions. Has the process started, and is every South African a target?
So the first thing you want to know is not every South African is a target.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing is, well, it's not an automatic exchange of information. It's not an open access system. So it's very much a case of upon request, SARS may then ask the bank for copies of specific taxpayers' bank statements, usually where there is a risk detected, and SARS then receives that. Now, on the other hand, there's also, well, should taxpayers owe SARS tax debt and they have not applied for a payment arrangement, a suspension, or some form of tax debt compromise to the write-off of your portion of your tax debt, then SARS may actually dip into that bank account and take funds as is deemed due to SARS without having sign-off per se from the taxpayer. Now, what you're referring to is a lifestyle audit, and that's kind of been going on from the shadows for probably about 2 decades, give or take, and now simply more prevalent and more public in the media, and we've seen it happen, especially with a lot of those local celebrities with large tax debts in the last 2 years or so.
Edward Kiswetter highlighted that SARS has made use of technological advancements like AI, data science, and machine learning to combat non-compliance. Could you explain how these technologies have been effectively integrated into SARS operations?
Correct. So, as a point of departure, what we saw very quickly was the use of automation to process bank statements. And in doing so, enabling SARS to go through years and years and years of statements across numerous accounts in a very short span of time. And thereafter, the system or the automation would generate a questionnaire or an Excel document for the taxpayer to complete. On the other hand, what you're seeing is automated letters of demand being issued from SARS almost indiscriminately, in inverted commas. And that is being sent to taxpayers with any debt across all taxpayer segments.
Jashwin, do you believe that the use of AI in tax compliance can reduce the burden on businesses, taxpayers as well, or does it risk creating a more invasive system?
So, look, on the one side, remember, SARS have 2 key strategic objectives. One of which is, well, to make non-compliance hard and costly, and the other is to make compliance, voluntary compliance, as easy as possible. And if you think of something like the auto assessments that have been implemented over time. That has, to a large extent, made life easier for your lower income taxpayers. And then on the other hand, for your very high income, your high wealth individuals, SARS implemented the high wealth individual unit with dedicated relationship managers to again make life easier, or to make compliance easier. But at the same time, through the use of automation, it reduces the man hours that are needed to ensure tax compliance and to then enforce and detect any non-compliance and collections that need to take place.
What role
So it is a double-edged sword for taxpayers.
What role do you see for data-driven insights in shaping future tax policies and also improving compliance efforts by SARS?
So if you think of your data-driven insights, SARS has a number of compliance programs running currently, and in the last revenue announcement, they managed to get in 301 billion from their revenue compliance program, and a big portion of that, and you'll see this happening still, is coming from tax debts that are due that SARS now need to recover. Another portion comes from outstanding tax returns. So in terms of SARS's tax themes for the coming fiscal year, two of them are the collection on outstanding tax debts, collection on outstanding returns, and another key focus is international tax. And the data-driven insights, this then allows SARS to tap into a very untapped tax revenue collection source, and that is cryptocurrency traders and investors.
As a final question, and this one here coming from our listeners this morning, if SARS is removing funds out of your bank account, is there anything the individual can do about it?
So yes, how it works from a collection standpoint is SARS first issue a letter of final demand where a tax debt is due. That letter gives the recipient 10 business days to file either a suspension of payment, a payment arrangement with SARS, meaning they pay the entire debt over a number of months, or alternatively, a compromise of tax debt, meaning that a portion of the debt, including interest and penalties, is legally written off and the taxpayer pays the balance. Those are three of the corrective measures that are actually listed on that letter of final demand.
Indeed. I want to thank you for your time this morning and this valuable information you brought to our listeners. Safe driving and have a wonderful day. That was Jashwin Baiju, the Associate Director and Head of Strategic Engagement and Compliance at Tax Consulting South Africa. A quick ad break, and when we come back, we're talking about the planned shutdowns of Wiggins Water Treatment Works gravity system, where the eThekwini Municipality Head of Communication, just to figure out what's going on with water.
The Breakfast Rush, brought to you courtesy of the Willow Tin Group, at the forefront of innovation and one of the leading competitors